Well, welcome to I Didn't Know That, a show about things I didn't know. And today I'm so excited to be talking about bees, honeybees, with Roger Bowe from Frazee. Roger, thank you so much for sharing all this information about your bees. And today we're going to be adding a super. So what is a super?
Super's got to be something that's really big. It isn't. If you see beehives in the spring, you'll see what they call the brood box, and that's the smaller one on the, or bigger one on the bottom, and then there'll be another one. Then from there they add supers, and super is where they store the honey. Let me show you some of the tools that we'll use in getting in and adding a super today.
Right.
So when you get to the brood boxes, you have to open them up, and usually they're sealed, and what they seal it with it's almost like a wax, and there's not propolis is what it is. I've got most of this off, but we'll see. I'll show you some of that when we get into the boxes. But anyway, you have to pry the boxes open, and I use one like this. There's several kinds. There's two kinds. There's this kind and that kind. I prefer this one here, but it depends on the person. And this little lip here is made so that when you get there, you can lift it up, and when I get into the box, you'll see how handy that works. Or this one here, you can pry it up, you know, whatever. And then I also have this where you can grab a hold of the box, the frame, and pull it on out, and that works real easy to hook onto the frame like this here and pull it out, so you have it. Or you can take it with your hands. It really doesn't
But that's where the honey will be, is on those.
Now these are some that we're putting back in here. This is a clean one that there's nothing on, so it's never really built up any honeycomb. This is one that I had from last year, and you can see it had honey in here, in most of it, and there's actually some honey left in here. Now that'll be part of this here box, and what the bees will come and they'll actually repair all the damage in here, and then they will take and fill it in.
What are these?
Okay, that's the honeycomb, and then when the bees, and I'll show you that when we get into it, but they will seal it up. They'll cap it, and it'll be capped in white caps. Now, if you see dark brown caps, that means that it's a brood. So there will be a potentially a live bee that will be in that thing. The other thing you need, some of the guys that I've only been doing this 6 years, but I kind of like to protect myself, and I put some gloves on, and I put just the top on is all I have, like this here, and just to protect myself. But I've only been stung twice in 6 years. Most bees are pretty tame, especially if you don't swat at them, or if you don't go in there and start banging around on stuff that disturbs them. So you'll see. Sometimes I'll use smoke, and sometimes I don't. In fact, I don't use a lot of smoke, but today we'll use some smoke to calm them down a little bit. But there's a lot of breeze in here. Out here too, so the smoke kind of calms them down a little bit and so on, but it's not necessarily a necessity.
So Roger, I think bees are so really amazing because they all have, or they kind of have their own role. Well, you know, the certain types of them, right?
Well, you have the bees that kind of guard the entrance down there, and then you have the ones that go out and get the nectar and the pollen, and actually they'll get nectar and pollen. It's kind of really fun to watch if you want to get down by a beehive and sit there and watch. They'll be like little bombers coming in, and you'll see on their little feet they'll have a little blue or yellow or whatever. There's pollen on their feet, and then of course the nectar will be inside of their body, and they'll land on that little platform and go in and go up and get. And there's bees in there that'll take the pollen off, and then they go regurgitate the nectar into another bee, and then that bee processes in their system, kind of like a cow has different stomachs, and then they put it into the honeycomb and stuff. And then there's bees in there that all they do all day long is fan the honeycomb with the nectar in to dehydrate it, to get it down so it's a syrupy consistency. And when they get it full, then they put a cap on her, a white cap on her of honeycomb and stuff. So, and you'll see some of that when we get into it. Well, here we are at the beehives, and you can see the beehive is constructed with the base frame down here, and then there's a platform here, a lot of them call it a landing platform, and you can see the bees are coming and going. This is the first brood box that I put on when I first put the bees in there. And then about 2 weeks later, I put the second brood box on. And that's where the bees, the queen lays its eggs and so on. And so we're going to get right in there. And I've usually put a block or something on the top so that the top doesn't come off. The top is consisted of 2 parts. And the one is the main part here, and you can see there's a few bees on there. And then there's another frame if you want to come a little bit in closer in here. And then that's where you use this tool to break this. And you can see there's some bees on there. Now they're starting to come out. But this is a super here. You can see I've got 2 brood, and I put a super on a couple weeks ago. And what we'll do now, I usually check to see how they're doing in the super. And I usually use this knife to kind of break it away, and on both sides, and then I'll take this here and lift it up. Okay. Usually I don't really get in and mess with the bees a whole lot, because the less time you mess with them, probably the better to some degree. And I'll get in with this thing here, and I'll lift this up, and we'll see. Now you can see, wow, this is really nice. You can see the bees are working there, and they're filling this all in with honey. And you can see on the other side they've reconstructed. And you've seen earlier some of the frames that they were kind of beat up. Now, one thing that if you have bees that you want to make sure that you do is you put the frames back in exactly where you got them from.
When will the honey be ready?
It won't be ready until probably the first week of September. Boy, these are heavy with honey, and they'll be capping them very shortly. You know, one of the reasons that you want to make sure that you put the frames back in the same spot, they know exactly where everything is at. So if I took this frame here out and put it back over here, it would disorient all those bees, so they would really have a problem. And you don't want to do that. And you can see they seal these things up really good. Man, this thing is heavy with honey. They'll get to about 40 pounds per one. Okay, I'll lift this one off. Now here's the brood boxes here. Okay, this is a good example of it right here. Right there, all these dark ones here are where there's brood. You can see that one right there. That's a bee being developed, and the capped ones are the beginning of it, and then pretty soon they will come. Now these white ones out on the side, that's honey. So even though this is a brood box, they store honey in there, so that when the bee becomes a bee, then they go and they get into that honey. So I'm not going to disrupt everything they got going on in here, because man, it looks good.
So how many supers will you put on?
I'll keep putting it on until they stop making honey.
So how many do you think that is?
Well, last year it was only 2. Actually, I only had honey in 1.5 super, but boy, this year here, this super here is full right now. So I'm ready to put another one on. I'll go and get one from right over here. And this one's empty, so they're going to be enjoying it. You know what? I think maybe what I'll do, I've got 2 of them here, but this one here has got a few more frames that have a lot more honeycomb already made on it. But you can see these bees here, even if I didn't have this suit up right now, they're not bothering me. Now, one of the tricks I do is you put it on the side like this here, so if there's any bees on the edge, you take and give it a little turn. That way they you don't kill a lot of bees. So there we got one more super on top. You see there's quite a few bees here. And I'll do the same thing here. Even, see, they'll be on your, they don't bother you. Try to get down in there, buddy. And then I'll kind of put it on here and carefully slide it. You know, if you treat the bees right, they like you. Now, I've got Italian bees this year, and they're usually a lot calmer than some of the other ones, the Russian bees and some of that. And I'm going to stick with Italian bees. Here's the way the bees come in that I get them. Inside of this container, there's 3,000 bees in there, and this is the way it'll come. In here, there's a can, and in this can is nectar that's dripping down, or they can come down so that the bees will have something to eat and stuff. And then also on the side, you'll find the queen will come in, and you take the queen out. And this is one I got where the queen was dead, and you can see the queen is inside of there right now, but she's dead. And what you do with the queen, well, you take this here and you shake all the bees into your hive in between the frames, and then you take this here and you take this little cork out of here, and then you put a little one of the baby marshmallows in there and squeeze that in there. And the reason for that is that they like the queen, they'll rescue the queen, and they'll eat the marshmallow out, and then the queen will get out and be in the hive. And so this hangs in between the frames that's already in there where they make the honeycomb and stuff, and then they'll rescue her, and she'll be out there and she'll go to work, and you'll have a whole bunch more bees. So that's the story. The hives, when you start out with about 3,000 bees, and they'll build to 50 to 70,000 in a normal hive. One thing that you look for sometimes in a hive is for swarm, where they're gonna, if they're gonna swarm, what they do before they swarm, and the reason they swarm is because they run out of room. And if you keep adding in at the right times, they'll have enough room. Right now they've got plenty of room, so there's no chance of them swarming. But when they swarm, they will make a little cone out of honeycomb that looks like, kind of like your finger, and there'll be a little hole in the end, and that's a special one. And they put some special nectar in there, and then they put the queen will lay an egg in there, a special egg to develop another queen, thinking that she's going to take and swarm and take half of the hive away, because the hive is not big enough for them, and so they survive. The bees are so smart that it's almost sickening, really, how smart they are. In fact, if they go out and they find a real hot spot where there's a lot of good nectar and stuff, they'll come back into the hive. They'll come back into the hive and do a little dance on the top, and that's signaling to the other bees as to where the hot spot is, where they can get more nectar and pollen, and the way they go to get more.
Roger, thank you so much for doing this. And I was getting a little nervous holding the camera as I could see the bees climbing on it, but they were very gentle bees. So.
You know what? If you go in, and each time you go in, right after you put the bees in there, and you are calm and stuff, you've seen how calm they were. I mean, they were crawling on my head. If I wouldn't have had gloves on, I wouldn't have been stung one bit, in fact. So, but I keep them on because I think, do I need to get stung just to prove that they may not?
Sure. And so then now you actually bottle up your honey.
That's right, and sell it in the store.
At the backyard station.
Backyard station. I'll tell you, I do it the old-fashioned way. I don't spin any of my brood boxes or anything. So I get pure honey, and I strain it. Now, a lot of people say it's filtered. Well, if you got filtered honey, it takes all the good stuff out. I run it through stainless steel, two stainless steel screens, and I do it about 3 times. And what I'm filtering out, or straining out, I got to get this filter word out of my mind, is the parts of the honeycomb. and that comes out of it, and it'll be just nice, clean stuff. Now, you know, if you have some honey that looks kind of crystallizes and starts to get opaque looking and kind of thick and so on, a lot of times that's because there's a high sugar content in the stuff. So don't throw it away, just put it in hot water and stuff and so on. It's still really good honey. The processors that do it for the grocery stores and stuff, they heat the honey up, and if it gets much above 105 to 115 degrees, all the good stuff is gone. So, you know, buy your honey from somebody that does it locally, and somebody that has a reputation of doing. There's some local ones that they're not necessarily doing it the good old way either. So
sure.
Make sure you know who you're getting it from.
All right.
So.
Well, thank you so much, Roger, and I hope you learned a little something today. As I say, I always learn something, and that's what's fun about this. And thank you for doing bees, and you know that they help pollinate all of our vegetables and flowers, and
keeps everything growing. And you know, I started this 6 years ago. I always wanted to do it. I wish I had started it 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So if you always kind of wanted to do it, I bought my equipment from Man Lake. It's right in Minnesota. It's right down the road, right north of Brainerd and stuff. And they got all the good stuff. And if you need some help on what to buy or what not to buy, stop in the store. I'll be glad to help you, you know. So we've helped several.
Yes.
We've helped several people get started.
All right. Well, thanks, Roger. This is Roger Bowe from Frazee. You can get his honey at the Backyard Station in Frazee. And thanks for watching.
Yep. Bye.